Hey everybody, Nick Espinosa, your chief security fanatic here, and today I actually want to talk about something that is super important here in the United States, and that's our national drinking water supply, because it is seriously at risk to cyber attack. Now this is coming from multiple sources. I'm cribbing primarily from Brian Krebs, who had an excellent article on this the other week, also NBC News, and the actual reports that these two sources mention, because I think this is just beyond important. Now think about this. Amid multiple recent reports of attackers breaking into and messing with our drinking water treatment systems comes a new industry survey with some really just terrifying findings. A majority of the 52,000 separate drinking water systems here in the United States still haven't even inventoried some or any of their IT systems, which is essentially a basic first step in any cybersecurity framework. Asset management is one of those things where if we can identify everything, then we know that we can maintain it, we can secure it, we can protect it, and on and on. Most of them can't even identify all of their assets. Now, this is coming from the Water Sector Coordinating Council, and they surveyed roughly 600 employees of water and wastewater treatment facilities nationwide, and they found that basically just 37.9%, or just over 1/3 of utilities, have identified all of their IT assets, with an additional 21.7% working on that right now, meaning right now, as it stands, the minority of water treatment plants have actually done anything when it comes to just asset management, not even more advanced cyber defense strategies. Now, the council found when it came to IT systems that are tied to operational or OT technology, operational technology systems, which are obviously responsible for monitoring and controlling the ICS or industrial control systems that these utilities basically turn the water on, turn the water off, control the gates or whatever that is. Less than 1/3, only 30.5%, had actually identified all of their OT assets as well. And that's an additional 22.5% working towards that goal. We don't even have the basics of asset management, which is one of the foundations of a cyber defense strategy. And to quote the report, identifying IT and OT assets is a critical first step in improving cybersecurity. An organization cannot protect what it cannot see, and they are 100% correct. It's also not hard to see the threat if you can't find it, if you can't actually have visibility into it. 67.9% of wastewater reported no IT security incidents in the last 12 months. And I quote Brian Krebs, a somewhat unlikely scenario. And I will double down on that to say absolutely. If you don't have threat detections in place, such as, let's say, even the basics like a UTM firewall, endpoint detection response, you could be crawling with infections right now where somebody's surveilling you or running reconnaissance on your network, and you would have no insight into that potential attack, that ongoing attack right now, or even if you're just having data exfiltrated. And this is where we find a ton of those 52,000 water and wastewater facilities. That's where they're at. The majority of them are at this problem. Now, according to Michael Arseneau, and I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, he's the managing director of the Water ISAC. If you don't know what an ISAC is, it's basically information sharing that a lot of critical sectors have. So there's a health ISAC, a state government ISAC, where basically all the health organizations or state governments and on and on and on and on get to basically do intelligence sharing and create standards and practices as well. They basically said, their Water ISAC said, the survey shows much room for improvement and a need for support and resources. And that is something we're going to be talking about here. According to Mr. Arseneau on Twitter, and I quote, threats are increasing and the sector, EPA, CISA, and USDA need to collaborate to help utilities prevent and recover from compromises. While documenting each device that needs protection is an obvious and very necessary and needed first step, a number of recent cyber attacks on water treatments have actually been blamed on the failure to secure basically accounts of the users that have remote access to remotely manage or control the water facilities. So check this out. In April, federal prosecutors unsealed an indictment against a 22-year-old in Kansas who's accused of basically breaking into a water system in 2019. He was a former employee of the district that he allegedly hacked this past February, and I did videos and Talked about this on Breaches of the Week. The water treatment plant in Oldsmar, Florida, population around 15,000 or so. Somebody actually increased the lye 100 times the normal level. That would have effectively poisoned the entire water supply for 15,000 people. Unfortunately, it was caught because an employee just happened to see it and quickly reversed it, but that stemmed from stolen employee credentials, and they were able to log into TeamViewer, which is remote access. An attacker accessed the system in one of California's water treatment plants in January and deleted several programs used in treating their drinking water as well. NBC News reported on that an unidentified attacker carried out that attack on January 15th in the San Francisco Bay Area by using the username and password of a former employee at the facility, meaning they don't have good operational control. When an employee leaves, you've got to make sure you're disabling or deleting those employees and at least changing their passwords if you need it around. Now, the attacker managed to access the former member's TeamViewer account once again, which allows employees to remotely use their computer, and that is according to the Northern California Regional Intelligence Center, basically issuing a report that was seen by NBC. This report also claimed that the attacker logged into the plant's system, then deleted several programs that the facility uses to treat the drinking water, and this went unnoticed until the next day, and then they were able to reverse that and reinstall all of these programs and reset those passwords. But here's the thing though. The vast majority of the nation's water utilities, tens of thousands of them, serve fewer than 3,300 humans or residents, and those utilities currently do not have to report to the EPA about their cybersecurity practices or lack thereof. The Water Infrastructure Act of 2018 gives utilities serving between 3,300 and 50,000 residents until the end of this month, June, to complete a cybersecurity risk and resiliency assessment. Again, this is coming from Brian Krebs. Now, according to the Water Sector Report, a huge amount of the nation's water utilities are subject to economic disadvantages typical of rural and super urban communities. So they basically don't have cybersecurity or even IT workforces or just one person to help them maintain these systems in a secure manner, let alone asset management and everything that goes into a cybersecurity framework. So as these recent incidents basically above can attest, enabling some form of multi-factor authentication could have thwarted these basic things, but the sharing of remote access credentials among water sector employees is also a problem. So you've got that one computer that everybody's accessing, you got those 3 employees, they're all sharing the same username and password. That makes it harder to establish a multi-factor authentication system, and here we are. This, I think, though, goes above and beyond what the problem is. And as Brian Krebs points out, a lot of these are coming from economically disadvantaged areas. The municipalities simply don't have the cash to pay for IT help, even if it's third party or outsourced, whether it's cybersecurity, or IT. And that's a huge problem. And I think because we are talking about one of those 16 critical infrastructure sectors of the United States, which, again, President Biden just got on stage the other week with President Putin to talk about how we shouldn't be hitting these. Here we have a massive swath of this country that has their drinking water run by inadequate defensive infrastructure. They can't see the attacks that are coming in. They don't have good cyber hygiene. They can't even run asset management to identify everything they own, not just the IT computers like the Windows ones, but the actual industrial control systems that are running their pipelines, their water supplies. This is a huge, huge problem. We are not doing anything. And I think, and I'm not for regulation, but this is one of these things where this is beyond critical, because imagine getting into some kind of hot cyber war, if you will, where essentially somebody can hit us and start turning off the water or introducing lye and poisoning half of the population of the United States. The vast majority of our municipalities and water supplies don't have good cyber hygiene or even basic operational IT things. This is a huge, huge problem. And so we need to address this. I think, if you know a congressperson, please give them a shout, because this is one of those things that they need to know about. They need to focus on. And as we are looking at ramping up the cybersecurity in the United States, and President Biden has issued executive orders, they talked about software grading. I'm obviously a fan of all of those things. We are trying to confirm a new head of a CISA that recently didn't pass. We'll see where that goes. These are the things that we need to focus on because these are the things that are run municipally. This is basically government-owned infrastructure as opposed to a lot of the private sector that, while it's still critical infrastructure here in the United States, this is what our tax dollars should be going to, and they're not. That's a problem. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one because it ain't going away anytime soon. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please stay private. Thanks, everyone.